there are a number of high-profile free agents on the market, and I think that at the end of the day, they're still going to get pretty big contracts. I still think that the top guys, I think it's going to be more the middle tier that really hurts from the nature of this offseason, the uncertainty with COVID-19 and projections for revenue and whatnot for clubs. So I want to talk now about some of the top free agents. I ranked them in an article at 110sportsmedia.com a week or so back, and it's still timely because only one player has anything really changed for, and we'll talk about that. Uh, but I want to discuss the players I ranked in my top 10 and where I think they're going to end up. A couple of players who did not make the top 10 but were also considered: shortstop Marcus Semien. There's a lot of teams that need a shortstop. Another shortstop, Andrelton Simmons. Neither of them made the cut, but they're both quality starting shortstops who I think could land a decent sized multi-year deal. Reliever Liam Hendricks, formerly of the A's, Masahiro Tanaka, and Jake Odorizzi formerly of the Yankees and the Twins. I think that they could get multi-year deals, and they're solid starting pitchers, not top tier. And then outfielder Jackie Bradley Jr., we talked about him a minute ago with the ties to Houston, and reliever Brad Hand, who we talked about as well, as I brought up that as an example. But my 10th ranked free agent this offseason is Nelson Cruz. And we've talked about Nelson Cruz before here on this show plenty of times. He continued to defy Father Time in 2020. He had the fifth highest home run total, the fourth highest OPS in the American League in 2020. His production just declined very slightly down the stretch because he was dealing with an injury. He was clearly connected. But the 40-year-old now, Nelson Cruz is 40, and he's looking for a 2-year deal, which would normally be preposterous. But this is a guy who just keeps smashing, hitting 40 home runs or at that pace every year for like the past 4, 5, 6 years now. He's strictly a DH at this point, as we talked about. So the current lack of clarity about whether that'll for sure be in the National League in 2021 affects his market. Makes me think that he's probably not going to be signing for a little while, at least as they maybe try to get some clarity. Because if you're a National League team, unless you have to be 100% confident that there's going to be a DH in 2021 to sign Cruz, to even entertain it. Because you can't sign him, and then all of a sudden if something happens and there's no DH, there's nowhere to put him. He's not playing in the field for any amount of regular time. So I feel like that's a situation where he's probably going to be a while before he signs. The White Sox, the Blue Jays, the Rays, they could all make sense. My prediction, though, is he ends up back with the Twins after a little time goes by. I don't think he'll get the 2-year deal, but I think he'll get 1 year. $17 million is my prediction, and I'm standing by that. Again, these numbers, I'm not an expert at estimating salaries or contracts, but I'm basing this off of other of what I've seen from contracts in the past and other people's predictions and my thoughts on their market. So that's my prediction for Nelson Cruz. The 9th ranked free agent for me is a shortstop, and it's Didi Gregorius. He bet on himself last winter and took a 1-year deal with the Phillies. He had come back the year before from Tommy John, and he wasn't really himself completely at the plate. So then he takes a 1-year deal with the Phillies, and it paid off. He had been with the Yankees the year before, and again, come back from Tommy John, wasn't great. With the Phillies, though, he rebounded with an 827 OPS. He was very, very good. He had 10 home runs, a 284 average this past season. He cut down on his strikeouts, showed that great power, but there were some concerning signs from under the hood. If you look at his numbers, an average exit velocity was just really, really poor. He just doesn't hit the ball hard at all. So there are some red flags with Gregorius, and his defense isn't really particularly exceptional that I think that'll prevent him from securing a 3-4-5-year deal. Maybe he hits 3. I'm predicting he hits 3. But I don't think he's going to get anything bigger than that. Like, there are flaws. And I think a return to there are several teams that need shortstops or that could use shortstops and move guys around from the Phillies to the Blue Jays if they move Bo Bichette to another position, to the Reds, they need a shortstop. The Angels with Andrelton Simmons now gone, they could turn to David Fletcher. There are options, but a lot of teams could use a Gregorius type player, and I think he'll end up with the Reds. That's my prediction. I say 3 years, $30 million. It's very possible he ends up just taking a 2-year deal. He's a player whose market I could see getting hurt just given the other shortstops on the market and some of the red flags with him. But I'm predicting a 3-year, $30 million deal with the Reds for Didi Gregorius. They're without a starting shortstop now. Freddie Galvis is gone. He wasn't a long-term answer anyway. So I think that's my prediction for them. Maybe they sign Andrelton. Maybe they sign Simmons. Maybe they sign Simeon instead. But that's my prediction. The eighth ranked free agent that I have for this offseason is third baseman Justin Turner. And of course, right now your first thought with Turner probably comes to his reckless decision to return to the field for the Dodgers after they won the World Series in their celebration after he had tested positive for COVID-19. And since then, we've learned no punishment is going to come from him, and whether you agree with that or disagree with that, as for his free agent status, it's not going to be affected by what happened at the end of the World Series. It's just not. Now, he is going to be 36 years old on opening day. He's not a kid. He's dealt with injury problems, but he's enjoyed a highly productive run with the Dodgers. He's averaged 26 homers per 162 games over the last 6 years, hit roughly 300. He's, again, like I said, injuries are common. So he's not going, you look at his numbers, you don't see 30 home runs, 28. It's lower than that because pretty much every year he ends up missing like 20, 30 games. It just kind of happens. But he is very productive when on the field, no doubt about that. A good hitter, a 300-like caliber hitter with solid pop and solid but not great defense in the hot corner. So there are a lot of teams that could use an upgrade at third. From the Nationals, there's a lot of uncertainty there. The Blue Jays need a replacement for Travis Shaw, assuming that they don't move Bo Bichette and get a shortstop and move Bo Bichette to third. But I'm going to predict Turner back to the Dodgers. It would seem weird to have him wearing any other uniform other than the Dodgers at this point. He's sort of this, he's not the face of the franchise, but he's this real big leader figure for the Dodgers, a big part of their organization, and I think he goes back to LA. 2 years, $28 million is my prediction. My seventh ranked free agent is an outfielder, and it is technically, if you're not considering Marcell Ozuna, spoiler alert, he's up here higher on the list, then Brantley is the second ranked outfielder for me among the free agents. He is going to be 33 years old. He has also dealt with injury problems throughout his career. He is a guy who does not have great power, but he is a solid defender in the corners and just a great hitter. He's just this 300 hitter. Year after year after year, he hit exactly 300 in 2020. He's just this really good, solid hitter, on-base percentage guy. And there are a lot of teams that could use that. I mean, the Nationals could use an outfield. The Cardinals always need outfield help. The Braves could replace Ozuna with him. The Astros would love to have him back. The Dodgers, you never know. I mean, the Blue Jays, could use outfield help in a veteran. The White Sox, some stability alongside their two young stars. There's a lot of places that Brantley could end up. And, again, like I said, high contact hitter, 15 to 20 homer power, solid glove. He's very well known at this point. He does have an injury risk. He's getting older, but he has been more durable in recent years, actually. He dealt with an injury this past year that he played mostly through, but was limited his numbers a little bit. But heading into this past season, he played 140-plus games for 2 straight years. I'm predicting the Nationals 3 years, $39 million for Brantley. That's my call, but again, I could see the Blue Jays being a logical fit. I could see Houston bringing him back if George Springer signs elsewhere. A lot of options for Brantley, but I think I'm going to go with my prediction it was the Nationals at 3 years, $39 million. My number 6 free agent this offseason is the one player that we do have certainty on now, so I'm not going to talk about him a lot. It's Marcus Stroman. Stroman was in my opinion, the second best free agent, second best starter set to be potentially on the free agent market, and I ranked him as such. 29 years old. He didn't pitch at all this past year. He started out dealing with an injury, then he opted out due to COVID concerns with the Mets. Not his concerns with the Mets, but he was a Met, and he opted out due to COVID concerns. And so, the number of teams that could have used him, big list. Despite that, he's still been very reliable, durable. a solid number two or great number three for most clubs, but he ended up accepting the Mets 1 year, $18.9 million qualifying offer last week, I think it was. So Marcus Stroman, no longer a free agent. He's off the board. So really, there's just one starter we're going to get to who just really stands above the rest on the market. But Marcus Stroman, I had projected that maybe he ends up in New York with the Yankees, but 1 year, $18.9 million qualifying offer accepted with the Mets. My number 5 ranked free agent this offseason is Marcell Ozuna. Incredible year with the Braves this past season. A 1 year, $18 million goodness, I'm running out of words. He accepted a 1 year, $18 million deal with the Braves this past offseason after seeing his market kind of hurt after the Cardinals extended him a qualifying offer. And it turned out to be the steal of the offseason, this past offseason. He led the National League with 18 homers, 56 RBI, a career high OPS of over 1,000, and just a sensational season for Marcell Ozuna in the middle of that Braves lineup that was just so fantastic. Now, Ozuna is actually younger than Brantley and my top-ranked free agent outfielder, but he's not a great defender in the outfield, and the team that would sign him would most likely want to use him mostly at the DH role. And again, like I said, uncertainty about the DH in the National League for this upcoming year, so I could see Ozuna waiting to sign a while, but if there's an AL team, like maybe the White Sox, who I project will sign him, or maybe the Rangers, they could just sweep in, offer him enough, and he could say, I'm ready to go, I'm signing that deal. So my prediction for him is that he signs with the White Sox. That would be just such a fun addition to that lineup. I don't know if they're going to be willing to spend that kind of money, but 4 years, $68 million is my prediction for Ozuna. I'm going with the White Sox. I think the Rangers are another possibility. They want to add some thump to their lineup. The Red Sox, maybe the Nationals, if they're confident about the DH. And a return to Atlanta would also make a good deal of sense. But my prediction for Ozuna is the White Sox. DJ LeMahieu, my 4th-ranked free agent this offseason, 32 years old, signed a 2-year, $24 million contract with the Yankees prior to the 2019 season, and has been outstanding the last 2 years. Just outstanding. The longtime Colorado Rocky, who people feared would struggle or not be the same kind of player outside of Coors Field. Well, he won a Silver Slugger in 2019, hitting 26 home runs, and he was even better this past year in the shortened season. Won his 2nd career batting title. OPS was a career high, over 1,000. Led the AL in OPS. He's 32 years old, like I said. His defense isn't what it used to be. He's mostly a second baseman. He can also play first, also play third. But his hitting profile figures to age pretty well. The Yankees would love to have him back. That's one of the big questions for them this offseason is the Yankees want DJ LeMahieu back. But are they willing to pay him what he's going to cost this time around? And are they comfortable with Gleyber Torres at shortstop? Those are questions for them. My prediction for LeMahieu, it's a little outside the box. I'm calling that he ends up with the Dodgers. 4 years, $72 million is my prediction for him. Now, it's probably unlikely that both LeMahieu and Turner end up on the Dodgers, but it's possible. Of course, LeMahieu has that flexibility to play all around the infield. He could take over at second base full time. He could fill in at third or first or whatever. I'm saying Dodgers, 4 years, $72 million, but there are a lot of other possible fits, including a return to New York, heading to Toronto, play for the Blue Jays. They've got openings, and also the Nationals could be a fit for LeMahieu as well, along with several other teams. A great player, an underrated player. Now, of course, he's getting his attention now, but a really, really solid, really strong player who's had some sensational years the past 2 years with the Yankees. My 3rd-ranked free agent is the top free agent outfielder on the market, and that's George Springer. Many of the Astros this past year struggled in wake of the whole team sign-stealing scandal. Whether you want to tie that together, connect that at all, I don't know. But I'm not getting into that. But Springer just kept chugging along this past year. He had a OPS about 900, completely in line with his production over the past several years. He's undoubtedly the best outfielder on the market. He can play a solid center field if you need him to. But he's also really solid in the corners as well. And he would be a good fit for any club who needs an outfielder and a middle-of-the-order bat. A guy who just hits home runs. He's not, he's probably not going to, hit 40 home runs or anything, but just a really solid, 30 homer. He steals a couple bags, good defense, solid batting average. The Nationals could use the help. The Cardinals could use the help. The Mets could be in the mix. He could return to Houston. There's so many options. I'm going to say that Ozuna leaves the Braves and that the Braves then sign Springer to a 5-year, $110 million contract. That's my prediction. But there are a lot of fits for him as well, like the Cardinals, like the Nationals, like the Mets. They seem to be interested, even though they have a lot of outfielders. So we'll see how that plays out. My second ranked free agent outfielder is a free agent this offseason, is the top starter on the market. It's Trevor Bauer. He was just named the NL Cy Young winner. We talked about it. We've talked about Trevor Bauer before. I don't really need to get to an explanation of how good he has been this past season. And he's going to get a big payday if he ends up taking a long-term deal. Now, there is still this possibility. He's talked about one-year deals in the past, wanting to take one-year deals. Maybe the market doesn't develop given the circumstances of this offseason and the monetary uncertainties, and he ends up taking a one-year deal because he thinks he can get more next offseason. That's possible. And that would bring potentially the Reds back into the fold and re-signing him on a bigger level. Maybe they sign him to a multi-year deal, but that would bring in a lot of teams if he's willing to take a one-year deal. But I still think he's going to get as top starting pitchers are, a small, hot commodity. I mean, everybody wants this great starting pitchers. So you're going to get a good deal if you're one of the best starting pitchers on the market. I project a 4-year, $100 million contract with the Angels. That's a team that has its star hitters but could really use that reliable starting pitcher. I think that they would be a good fit for Bauer, but maybe the Mets, maybe the Yankees, maybe the White Sox. There are a lot of potential fits for Bauer. My prediction is Angels 4 years, $100 million. Top free agent this offseason, in my opinion, and there's been some debate among similar lists of whether it might be Bauer or whether it might be Springer or whatever, but I'm going with the catcher, the best catcher in baseball right now, JT Realmuto. He was traded from the Marlins to the Phillies, of course. They gave up highly regarded pitching prospect Sixto Sanchez, who kind of had a breakout with the Marlins this past season, but there was no guarantee they'd be able to keep him beyond a couple years, and now he is a free agent. He wants a big contract. I mean, it's been expressed. One report, he's looking for a contract potentially as high as $200 million. Now, I don't think that's anywhere near going to happen, but we shall see. The Phillies would love to have him. The Phillies kind of need to do something this offseason. It was a bad season for them, but I don't know if they're going to be able to afford to keep him, or they can afford it, or they're going to be willing to pay that cost. The Yankees, we know they've got this catcher situation in flux. They could trade Gary Sanchez and sign Realmuto. But the perfect fit to me seems to be the Mets. I'm going with the Mets. Steve Cohen and company want to make a splash. I think he ends up on the Mets. That's my prediction. 5 years, $125 million is my prediction on the contract for JT Realmuto. A lot of possibilities for him, though. A lot of teams would love a great catcher. A lot of teams would love the best catcher in baseball. But my prediction is the New York Mets is where he lands.